So let's look at the next event on our list of events from our table of events. An organ arrives from a supplier. I want to be able to deal with that one. So I'll draw the bubble representing the process. First question is, how do I know that an organ arrives from a supplier? Well, I know because it shows up. So I'm going to put supplier here outside our system, and a data flow coming from the supplier to our process, and what we receive is the organ. And of course the next question is, so now that I know that I have the organ, what do I want to be able to do about that? Well, the first thing we're going to do, you'll recall that we said that we only receive organs from accredited suppliers. So we have to have a list of, not all the suppliers in the world, but I have a list of our accredited suppliers. So I'm going to put the object supplier here. And supplier will have data attributes such as name, address, and so on and so forth. So we'll do a query against supplier to see if they're on our list. So we'll see if they're accredited and on our list. And I just put accredited with a question mark, a Q there for a query, and coming back is going to be the answer. In other words, did we find the supplier from whom we received the organ? I'm going to put R for response. Remember that we always deal with the negative first. There are only two possible answers here. Either the supplier record exists in our records or it doesn't. We'll deal with the negative first. And what do we do if we find that we get this organ from a supplier that's not accredited? Well, we'll reject the organ. So I'm going to put this data flow here, and I'm just going to put reject, and that's all there's to it in terms of the requirement, the business requirement. The details of how we go about that is something that the software engineering team can look at and ask more questions about once they've decided on the architecture of the technology. So now that we know it's from an accredited supplier, what do we want to do about that? Well, we're going to keep track of the organ. We're going to receive it and record it. So there we have the organ. So data attributes of the organ would be organ type, of course, and we have blood type, and a number of other data attributes as well. We're also going to have date and time received, and that's from the supplier. And we're going to have date and time harvested. Remember we talked about this before? As well, from when it first came to the supplier. So now we've recorded that. The narrative would be receive the organ from the supplier. Determine if the supplier is accredited or not. If they're not accredited, reject the organ. If they are accredited, accept the organ and keep track of it. That's all there is to the narrative. We can write it up pretty well. This is the way I said it. And now let's give this a name, give this a label. And strong verb noun construct, I'm going to say receive organ. Now we have receive an organ from a supplier, determine if they're accredited. If they're not, reject the organ. If they are, keep track of the organ, record it, accept it, and keep track of it. That's all there's to it. Next, we're going to go on to the business rules table for this process.